Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Do more people have Gitas so we can responsively chant the Sanskrit? Or do all of you have it memorized? Who's read the 19th chapter of Bhagavad-Gita? No. Okay. Just checking to see who thoroughly studied even more than what's there. Okay, so we have the Gitas. In my book, it's on page 669. The 16th chapter, verses 11 and 12. Ready? Chintam aparimeyam cha pralayantam upashrita kamopaboga parama etavad iti nischita asa pasha satir bandha kama krodha parayanaha ihante kama bogartam anyayenartham sanchayam chitam apari mayam cha pralayantam apashrita kamopaboga parama etavad iti nischita asha pasha satir pada kama krodha parayana ihante kama bogartam anyayenartha sanchayam chintam aparimeyam cha pralayantam apashrita kamopaboga parama etavad iti nischita asha pasha satir bada kama krodha parayana ihante kama bogartam anyayenartha sanchayam chintam aparimeyam cha pralayantam upashrita kama boga parama etavad iti nischita asha pasha satir bada kama krodha parayana ihante kama bogartam anyayenartha sanchayan. Repeat. Others? Ladies? Ciao. Anyone else? Chintam, fears and anxieties. Aparimeyam, immeasurable. Cha, pralaya antam, unto the point of death. Upashritaha, having taken shelter of. Kama upabhoga, sense gratification. Parama, the highest goal of life. Etavat, thus. Iti, in this. Nischitaha, having ascertained. Ashapasha, entanglements in the network of hope. Santai, by hundreds. Badaha, being bound. Kama, of lust. Krodha, and anger. Parayanaha, always situated in the mentality. Ihante, they desire. Kama, lust. Bhoga, sense enjoyment. Artham, for the purpose of. Anyayena, illegally. Artha, of wealth. Sanchayam, accumulation. Translation. They believe that to gratify the senses is the prime necessity of human civilization. Thus, until the end of life, their anxiety is immeasurable. Bound by a network of hundreds of thousands of desires and absorbed in lust and anger, they secure money by illegal means for sense gratification. The purport by Srila Prabhupada. The demoniac accept that the enjoyment of the senses is the ultimate goal of life. In this concept, they maintain until death. They do not believe in life after death. and they do not believe that one takes on different types of bodies according to one's karma or activities in this world. Their plans for life are never finished, and they go on preparing plan after plan, all of which are never finished. We have personal experience of a person of such demoniac mentality, who even at the point of death was requesting the physician to prolong his life for 4 years more, because his plans were not yet complete. Such foolish people do not know that a physician cannot prolong the life even for a moment. When the notice is there is no consideration of the man's desire. The laws of nature do not allow a second beyond what one is destined to enjoy. The demoniac person has no faith in God or the supersoul within himself. He performs all kinds of sinful activities simply for sense gratification. He does not know that there is a witness sitting within his heart. The supersoul is observing the activities of the individual soul, as stated in the Vedas, that there are two birds sitting in one tree. One is acting and enjoying or suffering the fruits of the branches, and the other is witnessing. But one who is demoniac has no knowledge of Vedic scripture, nor has he any faith. Therefore, he feels free to do anything for sense enjoyment, regardless of the consequences. The consequences. Om Adhyanatamranyasa Yanagana Salakaya Chaksurin Militanyena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. The consequences. So this is interesting. This chapter starts out with something different. Right now we're talking about the demoniac tendencies. And we see in this verse that as Prabhupada says here in the purport, let's see. Purport, what? No wonder the page blew over here. No wonder I couldn't read it in the purport. The page blew to a different page. He's mentioning a purport that they take shelter of sense gratification. And the verse before, it's saying taking shelter of insatiable lust and absorbed in the conceit of pride and false prestige. The demonic, thus illusioned, are always sworn to unclean work, attached by the impermanent. So it seems we all have something we need to take shelter of. It's our natural tendency to take shelter. But generally, our activities develop our consciousness. The things that we do develop who we are. We can't say, oh, I'm thinking this and doing that, but who I really am is something different. What we think and feel and do is who we are. And so we find in this that the persons are taking, they're taking shelter of this sense gratification and becoming bound by this network of illusion. It comes to two different things. One, what is the goal? Is my goal to serve Krishna and go back to Godhead? Or is my goal that to satisfy the senses is the prime necessity of human civilization? That's why it says here that there is no end to their anxiety, and they're bound by a network of hundreds and thousands of desires. Bound by the network. It means you're stuck to it. That you can't get out of this without special help. So one thing this tells us before we get to the end of this verse, what is the difference with these kind of desires or doing what Krishna wants? Who has an idea? Which one is going to cost more money? Trying to serve Krishna with whatever we get, or if our prime goal of life is to gratify the senses as much as we can, which one is going to cost more money? Which one? Unless we want to build temples like Mayapur and Vrindavan. But of course then we take what we get. We do it as a matter of service. The difference is how the person is working. The person who's working for Krishna, even if he's doing a job in the material world, or if he's serving food in the restaurant, he's doing it as a service to Krishna and to the people he's around. He tries to do something nicely. But when the idea is that the prime necessity, just like necessity is like it's necessary to have air, it's necessary to have water, it's necessary to have alcohol, right? No, it may not be, but the person who's addicted to it thinks that. Because they're bound by this. They think they have to have it. And they're suffering because they don't have it, right? No, they're suffering because they tried it in the first place. When someone tries it and then tries to give it up, then of course they're suffering. But the problem was that they tried it in the first place. They don't connect the points that are going on. So we see that when we develop the spiritual qualities, we see that if this is our prime necessity, is to enjoy the senses to the end at any cost, then will it be easy to develop some of these spiritual qualities? Like, for instance, if we have a multitude of material desires, is it easy to develop simplicity? What does simplicity mean? One-minded, right? So if you have hundreds and thousands of desires, how can you be one-minded? One-minded is you have one point that you're going to. Duplicity is two. This comes to triplicity and others. How about things like fearlessness? It's funny, I was listening to the tape where the devotee was reading it, and he's reading the qualities of a devotee. And the first quality of devotee he read is fearfulness, correct? Is that correct? What? You're right, it's not fearfulness, it's fearlessness. See, one little letter can change everything, right? Is there a difference between fearfulness and fearlessness? There's like a difference between pleasure and pain. So if we have a network of all these desires, which are going to be easy to fulfill, right? No, you're right, it's not. They may tell you that. So if they're not easy to fulfill, is it going to be easy to be fearless? No. Especially when the desires, they don't give us exactly what we expect. We take shelter of it, and it doesn't really give us what we expect in return. Does that make us fearful? It does, doesn't it? It does make us fearful. How about qualities like truthfulness? If we really have to secure all this sense gratification, is it easy to be truthful? No? How about tolerant? Is it easy to have that? How about cultivation of spiritual knowledge? How about ignorance? Yes, okay. How about frustration? Yes? How about humility? No, but you can be humiliated. There's a difference, right? How about tranquility? Can you have that? Tranquility is not just like peaceful. Tranquility is like, wow, you really feel like everything's okay. Now, isn't that what we're trying to get to? To feeling that everything is okay? And by surrendering to Krishna, everything becomes okay? See, the difference is that if we're unhappy, we want to make some kind of adjustment, right? Is that true? Is that what we're supposed to do? Kind of. The ideas of thinking by a material adjustment, like the commercial used to say, are you smoking more and enjoying it less? Of course they are. So what was the solution? Switch brands. Will that material adjustment help? No. You're just smoking a different kind of smoke. Give you a different kind of cancer, right? Maybe same, maybe different. But you don't get to choose your disease, do you? I think I'll take one of these. I don't have that one. So the adjustment should be made. Instead of thinking, how can I be happy by material adjustment? How can I be happy by surrendering everything to Krishna? How can I use this as an opportunity to surrender to Krishna? And all the things we think are disadvantages can become advantages. I was reading in Purports in the 10th canto where Prabhupada says that sometimes Krishna uses the suffering or the anxiety to purify someone and make them realize that they need to make a change. So, going back to this unlimited anxiety. Say the person had been taking alcohol, cigarettes, or drugs. So he stops them, and now he's suffering. What should that tell you? He thinks he needs some more, right? It's like the teacher was trying to show the student the danger of alcohol, so he put the worm in the alcohol, and the worm died. And he says to the students, what does this mean? You know what the student said? If I drink alcohol, I won't get worms. So this is the way people are thinking. There's always one more excuse that I can control and enjoy this material world. And we have all these plans to control and enjoy it, and it works out very poorly, doesn't it? Even worse when it appears to work out for a while. Because then when it goes bad, it goes really bad. So what we need to do is adjust our consciousness. When our mind is wandering off, Krishna says in the 6th chapter of Bhagavad-Gita that from whenever and wherever the mind wanders, one should pull it back under the control of the self. This is where the mind belongs. So this is why we read what these spiritual qualities are, because we cultivate them by spiritual life and surrender to Krishna. So we think, do we depend on Krishna to develop these qualities within us? Or do we study these qualities and try to culture them? Which one? Both, you got it. It's both. It is both. Because it's kind of hard to know what's the right quality unless we've read what it is. But we see the difference. Now, who wants anxiety instead of tranquility? If I have anxiety for sale for 100 rupees and tranquility for sale for 2,000, which will you buy? Which one? The tranquility, but it's more money. But of course the other one seems like less money in the beginning, but later on it becomes worse. So all the things we're taking shelter of that we think will help us out, in the long run, they just further entangle us and make life worse for us. So what happens then is the difference is if a person is working, sure, they might want to give money to Vrindavan temple and to build Mayapur or their local temple back home. But it is best to do an honest job and try to do a good job, make some extra money, and give it in a proper way. Not trying to do something illegal, thinking I will give some donation and then I will also enjoy my senses to the end. So he is saying illegal activities. I was listening to the tape where Prabhupada was talking about this, was black market activities. So what would be some of the things that this mentions? Would stealing be good? Or would stealing be an illegal means? Right? It is illegal means, right? Armed robbery is illegal in India. You can get in trouble if you rob the bank with a gun. Yes? If the police show up. Of course, criminals only think there's two laws, getting caught and getting convicted. But as we realize that these things are being taken care of, that there's two birds in the tree. The eating bird is us, enjoying the objects of sense gratification. And Krishna, the witness bird, is watching what's going on. It's like a person takes a credit card. They charge something at Govinda's, they charge it at Biharilal, And then because you use a credit card, you don't have to pay, right? Is that right? No, you do have to pay. So the same way, we think the activities are being unnoticed. It's like the person who's the criminal. He has done it several times and thinking he is getting away with it. In the meantime, the police are getting more and more evidence to when they can catch him doing it. Whereas if we're serving Krishna and they catch us serving Krishna, that's okay. But if they catch us doing something illegal, then we can be in trouble. So we have to do an honest living, trying to do some work for Krishna, or at least trying to benefit others in some way or another. Just like Krishna mentions in the 12th chapter of Bhagavad-Gita, that the highest thing is to develop love for him at every moment. If we can't do that, we practice the rules and regulations of bhakti. If you can't do that, we do karma yoga. And eventually you just try to do something unselfish. At least you do something that's unselfish. So, if someone is working in the material world, they should try to do a work that's a service. Say somebody's the banker, they should try to do a good job of banking and give some of the money to Krishna. If someone is the rickshaw driver, they can drive the people to the proper place, not drink alcohol and run into something, which they do, right? And they can, whatever work they're doing, they can offer some of the result to Krishna. And they can be trying to do a better job to serve the people who are there. And if they make some money, they can give some money to Krishna. Now, even if they make some money, let's say they give a little to Krishna, or they don't, and they have some extra money, which would be better to do? Invest it in Indian economy, or just hoard it in a room and lock the door? Which one? Invest it, because at least you're benefiting the society. It may not be pure devotional service, but it's better than just trying to hoard it all for yourself. Some people did that in India, right? They had a whole room of 1,000 rupee notes. What is a 1,000 rupee note worth today? What? Nothing? Yes? What if they had invested it? They would have at least gotten some return materially. If they'd given some to Krishna, they would have gotten a benefit spiritually. And if they put it in a room, what do you get? Nothing. Right? If they'd paid the tax on it and invested it, they would have had enough extra money to give a donation, and they'd still be ahead. Even if they'd kept the money, even if they hadn't lost it, they would still be behind where they would be if they'd paid the tax and invested it, because the investment returns money. So, dealing in the black market, dealing in illegal things, dealing in things that hurt people, thinking businesses that don't necessarily help other people. I saw the sign in the rickshaw, it says, "Please, Narendra Modi, don't take our tobacco business away from us because we need our livelihood," right? So I say same thing. You know, my business is robbing the bank. Please don't make my profession illegal, because this is the only way I know how to generate funds. So, if we're doing something that's illegal or hurtful, which is, if somebody's prime goal is to get sense gratification, then do they care whether it's legal or illegal? Because this costs money, right? If you have to have it, you think, oh, well, I'll wait till later. The person who needs the alcohol or drug, if he has to do something illegal to make the money, will he do it, or think, well, I'll wait till I can do it reputably? Which does he think? It's what's the prime necessity, right? It's what you think is important, right? If you don't like to dance, but someone points the gun at, in the old Western movie, they'd shoot the bullets and the person would dance, right? Doesn't matter if you don't like to dance. If you think it's important enough, you do it. If you think you're going to die if you don't do it. So if we don't do the devotional service, we die a spiritual death. And we see what happens is, unfortunately, once we get on this road, it leads to more and more networks that we keep getting lost in deeper and deeper illusion. So we have to be careful of these things, because which ones are we, devotees or demons? A little bit of both maybe. So it's kind of like which one you give the credence to, right? Right? It's like you have a heater and an air conditioner, and depending on which switch you turn, the house will become cold or warm, right? Isn't it? Just by a simple switch. Which switch did you turn? And that's why they say that it starts in the beginning. Krishna mentions this also in the 6th chapter of Bhagavad-Gita. He says you don't have to worry about the sense gratification till later, right? You just do it for a couple of years and then think about giving it up soon. Was that it? He says, while contemplating the objects of the senses, is there some result? We get attachment. From attachment, what happens? Lust. Lust first. Don't worry, anger will come soon enough. Lust. And then lust, when it's unsatisfied, we get anger. And then anger, then we become delusion. Illusion is you're not sure what's going on. Delusion is you're sure that the wrong thing is the right thing. Illusion is to go out here and not know where Loi Bazaar is. Delusion is to go out here and think if I turn right, I'll get there. And then you fall into the material pool. So Krishna says, don't worry about it till you get to the material pool. Is that it? Or where do you fix it? In the beginning? It's like if you're going to shoot yourself in the head, doesn't matter, just find a good doctor, or do you stop contemplating it first? Which would be easier? You realize that the result comes later. You have to realize where it's taking us. That's why you think about something, think it all the way through. Where is it going to end up? Where is it going to take me when I do this? It's funny to see that even in Vrindavan people are smoking cigarettes, because I think they're very hard to give up. But not if you don't smoke them. But they kill people and yet they keep smoking them. And people go crazy in our town of Laguna Beach because they made it a city ordinance that you're not allowed to smoke in public. I'm amazed they don't have that here. You'd think Vrindavan would be a place people didn't smoke cigarettes. Not that many smoke though, do they? But a few do. But it looks funny because in Laguna you don't see it because you can get a $100 fine for lighting up a cigarette in public. So it kind of makes the town clean and not smelly, and they throw it in the street and it goes into the ocean. Yeah, but the people who have to have it. They're going crazy. I have to have one. But if you don't smoke them, do you think about it? You don't even think about it, right? Then people go out and beg for cigarettes. If you're really going to be a smoker, you better buy 100 of them, right? It's like if we chant Hare Krishna, we don't go out and look for beads. We have beads already. And the first thing we do when we wake up is we know where they are and get them ready to chant with. We don't say, oh, I need to chant. I better borrow some beads somewhere. So it amazes me sometimes that people have these desires and yet they're not fully equipped for it. But that's the trouble with these things, is that they are not easily obtainable. And the demand goes up while the enjoyment goes down. Imagine that. That's why the commercial says, are you smoking more and enjoying it less? Of course they are. The more they smoke, the less they enjoy. But if you switch brands, it'll be okay, right? Is it true? No? But it comes in a different color package. I see in the cigarette store, they have green ones and red ones, and I think there's like a yellow one and a white one, and I'm not sure what the difference. I think one is like a candy one, and I'm not quite sure, but which one causes cancer? Which one? It's funny, there was a commercial that said, which looks funnier? What's funnier than having the cigarette in your ear? Having it in your mouth. But it's funny, if you go to a place where people smoke and you put one in your ear, everyone will look at you. But if you light one up, actually that looks more crazy, doesn't it, to breathe in smoke? If you had to have a cigarette, it says, okay, you need to have a cigarette. Would you rather put it in your ear or light it and smoke it? Now what would you do? Now it's not so bad to have it in your ear because it doesn't really hurt you. So it's only bad if you smoke the one, right? If you have a pack of cigarettes and you don't smoke them, it lasts a lot longer, doesn't it? It's funny, someone left a pack of cigarettes at our house, and one of my daughter's friends says, "Oh, can I have those?" I said, "Yes, someone left them here." And she lit it, says, "Oh, it's stale. How long has it been here?" I says, "Oh, about 2 years." Someone left it somewhere. We found it in a drawer or something. This is about 2 years. She goes, "Oh, don't you know they go stale?" "No, I thought they were always stale," right? So this network of desires we have to see as something that goes on. But what do we see as our prime necessity? Now, probably for a few lives, we've had this idea of how to enjoy the senses, in different ways. And we know what the different modes are. The intoxication is ignorance. Sex and making lots of money is the mode of passion. And being helpful and being nurturing and healthy is the mode of goodness. So the mode of goodness is at least better than the others. It won't tie us to this network of illusion and unlimited desires. And we won't be absorbed in lust and anger. Imagine being absorbed in lust and anger. Because especially the way it looks. How sense gratification. I think in the book about brahmacharya it says one thing to remember with this is that particularly like the sex doesn't turn out near as good as someone thinks it might. People have a fantasy, an idea in their mind about how glorious and wonderful this is going to be. But yet the experience may not be so great. And the trouble is what happens is when we're dependent on Krishna, we already feel satisfied, and we have this thing called tranquility, right? Where we just feel peaceful and great. But when we get a little sense gratification, it takes us out of this tranquility, but it doesn't satisfy us. Now, all of a sudden, we need more. And just because we think it will take away the anxiety, even though it won't, right? We think, oh gosh, a little bit helped for a while if I get more. And we lose that tranquility. We lose that peace of mind. And that peace of mind is a great thing to have. Freedom from these things. We think the purpose of having money is to have freedom to do what we want. But we give away that freedom by becoming addicted to intoxicants or attached to sex life, or having to have so much comfort that we can't enjoy just a simple walk down the street chanting japa. It's funny how different things are conditioned in different places. Like here, people walk down the street with their hand in a bead bag chanting. And in America, the cow is sacred here, but not as sacred as the dog is in America. In America, they follow the dog around and they pick up the stool with a bag. And so they're walking around with a bag with stool, and I'm walking around with a bead bag. Wouldn't it be funny in the higher planets, or like a movie where the person is there with everybody chanting, and he comes to Earth, and he sees that instead of people chanting with a chanting bag, that they're following around dogs, and they're carrying the dog stool in the bag. You're going, wow, this is a really strange planet. Instead of carrying around beads in a bag, they pick up and carry the stool of the animal around with it in a bag, right? And then they look at us funny while we're chanting on the beads. At least they pick it up and don't leave it there. But it's amazing what people think is normal. Somebody lights up a cigarette and smoke goes in, and I see smoke come out. Are you on fire? They said, no, I'm smoking a cigarette. I said, why would you do that? And they don't really have an answer. They just look at you like, why would you do that? So it's amazing. These things just have a desire, and they follow the desire and say, well, why would you do that? Right? But because these desires are pulling them, they call it hooked. It's like the person they put the small fish, the bait, in the water, and then the fish bites that, and a hook goes in his mouth, right? Now sometimes they let the fish swim away, now the fish is free, right? No, because then he can reel it back in any time. The fisherman can reel it in. So when we're hooked, we might sometimes feel a little free and other times not. So we either have to get out of this network of desires, or if we can in the beginning pray not to get in it. But in either condition, we have to take shelter of Krishna, because we see each person is looking for some shelter. Why are they looking for shelter? Because shelter is a natural thing, isn't it? We all want to take shelter of something. So it's a natural thing. But which is better, if we take shelter of lust and anger, or we take shelter of Krishna? Which one is more painful? So if we want pain, then we take shelter of lust and anger, right? Who wants pain? Raise your hand. You want pain? No? It will come anyway, right? So any questions or comments? We go till 6:30? Or 7:45? 6:30? Any questions or comments on this? Yes.
We had this temple in Sri Lanka.
Yes.
That temple was built by one big thief.
Why, one king?
Thief.
Thief, yes.
Yeah. He was stealing money from different kings and he built that temple. What do you say about that?
Well, at least you give something to Krishna, but we're not advising people to try that. We're not advising that. Why are you advising some people to steal for Krishna? Yes.
Honestly, you can use whatever they have, you can give some kind of Krishna stealing and giving to Krishna. So the devotee, yes, well, Albert. He was Albert.
Okay. Put it in.
Albert, like we are saying they are Acharya.
Yes. No, I know this story, but I don't want to advise someone to do something illegal and give the money to Krishna. Because this happened before, that some devotees advised other people to do something illegal to make money for Krishna. And the trouble is that creates havoc with those people's spiritual life. So you don't want to advise someone to do that. We're more concerned with people having a good spiritual life. If people already have money, then if they give that to Krishna, but we want their hearts more. We don't want to advise people to do something that may ruin their spiritual life in the process. Now, if they already did it, then you ask them to give some money to Krishna. But we don't want to advise people to do things, because when you go to engage in black market, and when you go to engage in smuggling things, or when you go to engage in get a stock degree and buy and sell mutual funds. And there's devotees that do this. There's a couple of Mumbai that do quite well at doing this. Get a degree and do it right, because we don't want to advise people to do that, because in some emergency it might be possible. But if people do that, it creates havoc with their spiritual life. So we don't want to advise that. It's not part of a program, even though it has been done before. But we don't do that now. Another question?
As part of a comment, I thought just thinking that it's my own, it's a illusion. And many times you find politicians, others, donating the 20-kilo gold and things like that, which it's very obvious is through God and needs.
Yes.
But it's nobody's money, everything is Krishna, so it just come back to him pretty much.
Yes.
So, I agree with Vishnu.
But even if the person didn't give it to Krishna, it's better that they put it in the economy than just hoard it in a room.
Right.
It's like Kali was where the things are being hoarded, right? Because if they make money, they can give some to Krishna, but even if they're doing that, at least they're benefiting the society. But again, we don't want to encourage people to do the illegal things. Prabhupada says that we can't do something whimsically and then offer the result to Krishna. I mean, sometimes these people came along and gave donations. But that's different than us trying to do it ourselves. So we won't engage in a thieving party. Now maybe we could go to Pakistan and smuggle Dawood Ibrahim out, and there'll be a big reward for him, right? But you might get in trouble trying that. Right? You have to make your Hindi sound like Urdu, and you have to be able to get in and get him out with... Now, maybe that's reputable, but you'd probably get killed trying it, wouldn't you? Who wants to go to Pakistan? They must have tried, right? Because you know what Dawood Ibrahim did? He makes counterfeit money now, and before he blew up that building in Mumbai at the corner of Mahatma Gandhi and Veer Nariman Road, killed 600 people, and then he's hiding in Pakistan. So if you brought him back here, you'd be a hero, but if you tried to kidnap him in Pakistan, you'd be a criminal there. Another question? Yes.
Regarding the addictions which you were mentioning,
yes.
If we, in our teaching experience or personal experience, we talk to such people that why they do these things, just like addiction to smoking, addiction to them, illicit sex and other things. So they have obviously the media is very much rampant nowadays in a way, all world is moving rushing in one direction. So they have so much mental speculation that this will give me satisfaction. I need to do it. Without this, I won't live. Exactly like you mentioned, that necessity, that it becomes like a necessity, like as necessary as air and water to breathe in. So in that way, how in our preaching or in our personal application also, how to a person who is completely in that imaginary world. So how to gradually take him out?
Well, sometimes they have to suffer a little more, because when they get to a point of where they, like one person asked Prabhupada on the train, Swamiji, can you bless me that I can quit drinking alcohol? And Prabhupada says, I can give you that blessing, but the blessing is that Krishna will take everything away from you, so you have to depend on him. So quite often the people have to suffer enough that it gets so bad, right? It's like if I'm twisting your arm. Come closer. Come closer. Come closer. And you don't want to say the name Krishna, right? If I'm twisting your arm, you don't want to say it, right? Don't say the name Krishna. So say it? Krishna. Okay, see? When it gets far enough, he has to do it, right? A little bit, not so much. But if you say, well, it's going to hurt more, but if they suffer enough, they think, oh, you know what? So sometimes they have to suffer a little more. Because quite often what happens with people in this is they have well-meaning friends and relatives who try to prop them up and make sure they eat and make sure they have everything taken care of. Whereas the best thing that can happen is for them to get in a difficult situation and have to seek Krishna out. You know, we talk about the 4 kinds of people, right? Some people, if you can search Krishna out from wanting knowledge of the absolute truth or inquisitiveness, that's great. But if the person has the problem, then they need to be in distress. Not just thinking maybe I will be in distress later. They actually have to get into enough distress to where, just like there, he had to get into enough distress that he's going to call out Krishna because he doesn't want it to go any farther, right? So sometimes it doesn't work gradually. They have to get to a point where, okay, I'm done with this, I have to stop now, because it's kind of hard to gradually do the things like that. It's almost easier just to surrender to Krishna and have them taken away than try to gradually.
But sometimes in this process of getting enough distress, he sometimes gives up his implicit faith in the Krishna consciousness. Just like like Krishna also says, if one becomes too much morose or hopeless, then he gives it up totally and takes to this Gyan or Mayavad in that way, like everything is, nothing is possible in that way.
Well, what we want to do is help people to get in an atmosphere where they don't think they need that, but you can't force somebody to. You can't force them to. You have to make it available, and you don't want to criticize someone. You want to feel bad for them, right? You want to feel, how can you be helpful? It's funny, once Radhanath Swami was giving a lecture, and he's saying, how do we deal with people? He's always thinking, how can I be helpful? That's the idea, not to prove how great I am and how bad you are or what you need to do, but how you can be helpful. So, you can try to force someone to do something who isn't ready to do it, unless they have a desire. Now, they may have a desire to do it later, just like we have a desire to totally surrender to Krishna, but we're not doing it now, but we have a hope. We have a desire to have a desire. But if they have no desire at all, you're not going to be able to force them. But go more crazy trying with that. But sometimes people need to suffer a little more and also see what the difficulties are. Show them, come and chant with us, and let them do that, and then they'll seek a way out. Yes, another question?
Right. So, in the beginning, the devotee, they come to the temple very nicely and they are very much happy.
Yes.
And they have children, they are very happy. And one of the child dies. After one of the child dies, then they become totally that we don't trust in Krishna because Krishna has killed my son, and so I am so much disturbed. So this thing, they come out from the Krishna consciousness and just find out some different ways.
That's strange, because I had a child that died, and when my child died, it made me take a lot more shelter of Krishna. Which child is not going to die? Who has a child that won't die? What? Do they all die? Yeah, you might live 10 years, 15, 20, maybe 100. Probably not even that, right? But they're all going to die. And when I had a child that died, it made me take more shelter of Krishna. See, the difference is anartha nivriti. This is why we have to keep ourselves, is that we're 60 or 70% detached from material things. And the same thing for the person like with the alcohol and the drugs, is that they have to be more attached to God than to all the other things. So this means more than 50% we have to be attached to Krishna, more than we are to family, job, what all those situations have to be less than 50%. Eventually, we want to get to 100%, but to progress and to get free of attachments and to not be morose about losing someone, we have to be more attached to Krishna than we are to that child. I'm attached to my children and my 2 grandchildren and to my great-granddaughter, and my granddaughter didn't want me to come to Vrindavan. She wanted me to stay home with her and the great-granddaughter. So I didn't come, right? I did come. There's evidence to support that. But what I will do is, after the Mumbai festival in January, I will go back for 2 weeks. So, we love the children, but we know that they can die just like we can at any time. And we have to be attached to Krishna. And when that happens, we take more shelter of Krishna. And we have to take shelter of Krishna because these things could come at any moment. I know with mine, my mother called me on the phone because I was picking up my other children for Christmas time, and she says, the child stopped breathing. And I said, he's alive, isn't he? And she said, no. And there's no changing that. And that made me... So we have to be prepared that when something happens, we use that. Something good happens, good, I'll go and enjoy. Off to the bar I go, right? Something bad happens, off to the bar I go, right? Anything that can be an excuse to give up Krishna or get drunk can also be an impetus to surrender to Krishna. So we kind of have to practice at that. Obviously, we're less than 50% attached to Krishna if that when a child goes, we give up Krishna because we are so attached to the child. Sometimes it's their time to go. What if it was their time to go back to Godhead? Do you want to call them back? If your child got into the best IT school in India, would you drive to there and take them out of the school because they're not at home? So if Krishna took them to a higher planet or back to Godhead, would you want to go to Krishna Loka and give me that child back? He's not supposed to be here with me. So we have to, in the beginning, be more attached to Krishna than to those things. Children eventually grow up and they die or we die. They had to realize they're not the only ones that happened with, right? And in the West, marriages split up much more often. They do here in India. Sometimes in India, instead of a person being divorced, they have an accident in the kitchen. But of course, it wasn't a real accident. Divorce isn't good, but it's better than getting burned in the kitchen, isn't it? Isn't that the same as divorcing someone plus murdering them? You can't say, I murdered them, so I'm not guilty of divorcing them. Is that true? No, it's not true. So, we have to be more attached to Krishna, and we have to work at it. So if we're more attached, even if we love that child, we can't be more attached to them than Krishna. Otherwise something happens, we're in trouble. And that person who wants to quit the alcohol and the drug, they have to be more attached to Krishna or God in some form than they are to that. There's people in the West who had given up alcohol and they had a child that died and they didn't go back to it. And they aren't even devotees. So if they can do it, certainly we can, can't they? Can't we? There's stories of people who had given up alcohol and they had a child that died and they still realized they had to be more attached to having a connection with God than to that child. So if they can do it, we can do it. We may not like it, but it makes us stronger. I didn't like it when the thieves had the gun at my head in South Africa, but I'll tell you, I surrendered a lot during that time that they were arguing about whether to shoot me or not. I got 2 very good rounds done. Make that last one count, right? So how often you've seen that happen when the child dies? You've seen it happen several times? How often? Once only. We have to tell people that this is possible to happen, right? They think somehow this can't happen, right? But people like, I went to my Ainekwala and his wife was there and she said he was killed in a car accident a few months ago on the Jamuna Expressway. I mean, we can't become shocked. Like cars in India kill 143,000 people a year, not to mention diseases and other things. And child death in India is much more than America, isn't it? Don't they die from all kinds of diseases and things? In Europe in the Middle Ages, half the children didn't live till 10. So we have to be prepared to accept these things that go on. That's the whole point here is that whatever goes on, that our key is to accept it and go on in Krishna's service, not try to change it or lament about it. We have to accept things the way they are, and that's more of a key to happiness than trying to change it. Someone dies, husband or wife leaves the other one, you may not be able to change these things. So you take shelter of Krishna instead. And we take shelter in ahead of time, right? Just like the army. Does the army, if Pakistan attacks, do they start training? Or do they train ahead of time? They train ahead of time, right? Air Force doesn't get pilots if Pakistan attacks. They don't get people and train them to be pilots, do they? They already have pilots who know how to fly, don't they? So we have to already know how to surrender to Krishna, because we love Krishna, and just in case something goes wrong, because it will. Things will go wrong in this material world. You can bank on that. Isn't it true? Can't expect that everything's going to be perfectly the way you want it in the material world, or you're going to be disappointed. There aren't many guarantees, but that's one. That's why sometimes people are rich or suffer, because they expect everything to be exactly the way they want it, and it doesn't turn out that way. So we have to teach people that, you may lose things, and you have to take shelter of Krishna instead of giving it up. All right, is that enough? Hare Krishna.
One more.
Yes.
Just like in the purport is given about the destiny. So we are going according to our destiny, or we can change our destiny.
Well, we may be by devotion, but we're trying to change our spiritual destiny. We're not trying to do the devotion to increase our material destiny. It may change if Krishna wants us to. Krishna may change our destiny from being involved in material desires to becoming free of it. But we should worry more about loving Krishna and being free from material desires than trying to get material benefits or changing our material destiny, because then we'll be misdirecting our devotional activities. We want to accept what Krishna sends us. But we do pray to be free from material desires, and we do pray for service. And we do pray to be attached to Krishna. That's different. But we should be asking Krishna to engage us in his service and to remove the defects, our anarthas, our shortcomings, our sinful desires, so that we can be useful to him. That's what we should be concentrating on, not, give me a better job or make my destiny that this property goes up in value or so many things. Any other question? Yes? They want some microphone because they hear it on the radio. Yes.
We have heard that by practicing Krishna consciousness, senses are controlled visually. So, but it takes time. So,
yes.
Is there need of endeavor individually for controlling senses?
Well, we pull the senses away from matter and take them to Krishna. We chant Krishna's name and concentrate on that and ask him to remove the things. It's simple. We ask him, remove the things that are standing in the way of my service to you. We ask him to help with it. And then we try to work at taking them out of the mind. We don't concentrate and dwell on them all day. Right? If you go in the restaurant, eventually you'll eat something, right? So if you're dwelling on this on and on and on, eventually you'll fall prey to it. So we have to realize it's like the fire. Well, I can get closer. And eventually you get burned, right? But if you get burned a little, that's okay, right? Is it? Yes? Oh, no. That's a trick question. We think that way, though, right? What we think is the whole material world is stool. But if I only have to have dry stool instead of wet stool, I'm okay. Prabhupada calls it a dry stool, wet stool argument. So dry stool isn't as bad as wet stool. So that makes it okay? No, it doesn't. But that's what we think, isn't it? That's how we think. If I can just get it not so bad. I'll do something bad, but not so bad. Right? So we have to stay out of the stool completely. All right. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.